He was locked in a prison cell, forgotten by the world, weighed down by guilt and regret. With no hope left, he dropped to his knees and whispered one final prayer, more like a desperate cry than a holy moment. But what happened after that prayer? No one, not even he, could have expected. It wasn't just a second chance, it was a supernatural turnaround. If you want to hear more powerful stories of God's love and transformation, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join our family of faith. He didn't grow up planning to end up in prison. No one ever does. But life has a way of piling pain on top of pain until you stop fighting it. You just go numb. For him, it started early. A broken home. A father who was more shadow than presence. A mother who tried her best but was buried beneath her own wounds. He learned quickly that the world doesn't wait for the hurting to catch up. So he toughened up, hardened, closed off. By his teenage years, he was already skipping school, running with older guys who saw his pain and used it. Drugs, fights, small-time theft. It was all part of this armor he built to hide how empty he really felt. Every wrong choice didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like survival. And honestly, part of him wanted to be caught, wanted someone to stop him. But no one did. Then came the robbery. It wasn't supposed to go that far, but adrenaline makes bad decisions feel like control. The sirens came fast, the cuffs clicked shut, and just like that, the noise of his chaos was replaced with cold, still bars. In that moment, staring through the metal, reality slammed into him, not just the prison he was in, but the one he'd built inside himself. And that prison felt far worse. The metal door slammed shut behind him, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly trapped. The cell was small, suffocating, like the air itself didn't want to stay. Time didn't move in prison. It just sat there, staring at him through thick concrete and cold steel. Days blended into nights, and the silence between the noise was the loudest thing of all. He could hear his thoughts, every mistake, every regret, echoing in his head like a cruel soundtrack on loop. The other inmates wore their pain like armor, some angry, some numb, some just trying to survive another day. He quickly learned how to keep his head down, to avoid eye contact, to fake toughness. But no matter how hard he tried to act like he didn't care, he did, deeply. Regret clung to him like sweat. He replayed that night over and over, wondering if things could have gone differently if he'd just walked away. Sleep didn't come easy. Nighttime was the worst. The walls felt closer, the guilt louder. Sometimes he'd stare up at the ceiling, not sure if he was praying or just talking to the dark. Either way, no one answered. The weight on his chest felt heavier every morning, like hope had packed its bags and left the cell before he even woke up. He wasn't just serving time, he was drowning in it. And worst of all, he believed he deserved every second of it. It happened on a night like any other, except this one felt heavier, like the darkness had a weight to it. He'd just gotten into another fight in the yard, nothing serious, just enough to remind him that anger was still breathing just under his skin. His knuckles were bruised, his pride was shattered. And as he sat alone on that cold metal bed, something inside him cracked. He didn't cry much anymore, but that night the tears came hard, silent at first, then shaking. His hands trembled as he buried his face in them, the shame crashing over him like a wave he couldn't swim out of. He wasn't afraid of prison. He was afraid that this emptiness, this cycle, was all his life would ever be. That he'd already become the worst version of himself, and there was no coming back. And in that moment, for the first time in years, he spoke to God. Not out loud, not with fancy words, just a raw, broken whisper. God, if you're real, I need you. I can't do this anymore. No lightning cracked the sky. No angel walked through the cell. But something shifted. A quiet settled into the room, like the chaos had been silenced for a breath. His heart, still aching, felt softer, like someone was listening, like he'd been seen. It wasn't a miracle in the way he imagined, It was more like an opening, a crack of light in a long dark hallway, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel entirely alone. Something shifted after that night. It wasn't instant, like a light switch, but more like a slow sunrise pushing back the dark. He still woke up to the same grey walls, heard the same shouts echo down the halls, still ate food that tasted like cardboard. But something inside him was different, quieter, still bruised, still haunted, but no longer hopeless. He started reading the Bible, not because someone told him to, but because he was starving for something real. At first it was confusing, just words on a page. But then he read about men who were broken, lost, angry. And yet God used them. David, Paul, even Peter, who denied Jesus when it mattered most. These weren't perfect people. They were people like him, and it hit him. God didn't wait for perfection. He came for the desperate, the damaged, the done. He began praying more, not begging, just talking. Some days it was messy. Some days it was just silence. But he felt peace, not every minute, but enough to know God was in the room, even behind bars. Other inmates noticed the change. One asked why he'd stopped fighting. Another asked why he was always reading that old book. He didn't preach. He just shared his story, what God had started doing in him. Slowly, a few joined him. A quiet circle formed in the yard, reading scripture, praying. Real conversations, real tears, and in that forgotten place, God was building something holy, not a church of walls, but of men being rebuilt from the inside out. And for the first time in his life, he felt like he mattered, not because of who he was, but because of who God is. The day he walked out of those gates, the sun felt like a new thing, not just light on his face, but warmth in his soul. Freedom wasn't just about leaving prison, it was about not being chained inside anymore. The man who had entered that place years ago was buried. What stepped out was someone reborn, not perfect, but transformed. It wasn't easy. The outside world didn't roll out a red carpet. Jobs were hard to find. Some people only saw his record, not his redemption. But he held on to what God started in that cell. He found a small church that welcomed him without asking for his past first. He shared his story with teenagers, addicts, men teetering on the edge. Some listened with arms crossed. Some cried. But he kept going. Because if God could reach him in the darkest cell, he could reach anyone. His mother, she cried the first time he hugged her again. Not just because he was out, but because she could see it, peace in his eyes she had never seen before. That meant more than anything. Now he mentors young men coming out of prison. He walks them through healing, through faith, through the wreckage. He tells them the truth. You might be out, but real freedom starts inside. And it starts with God. To anyone still living their prison moment, whether behind bars or just trapped in guilt, pain, or regret, don't give up. God sees you. He's not done with you. Sometimes the most powerful stories begin in the darkest places. Keep holding on. Your redemption is coming.